so you'll pay less if you just get a digital publicist. But unfortunately, usually digital publicity doesn't sell records. What sells records in the UK, as I see it, is a swell of mainstream national publicity. If you get a Guardian 5-star review, or if you get a CD of the week in the Sunday Times, which the Acorn just got last week, an indie band, it doesn't seem to have much effect unless it works across all the papers. And there always needs to be champions, but essentially, you know, the more you get, the more chances you'll have. What good press does do, it opens up opportunities to perform in better venues with better fees. You know, the more pull quotes you can put on your biog, the more usually ammo it gives your agent, or if you're booking, to ask for higher fees, because chances are the more people will be aware of you and want to come see you. So that's very, very important. So there are different publicists for different sectors, essentially. Radio is the same. There's about 200, as I know, about 200 radio pluggers. And there are people who both do press and radio together. There are not many of them. There are companies that have both offered, obviously, but there's different people who do them. And radio sells, I think that radio has the stronger opportunity to sell more CDs for you than press if it's done well. UK is a singles market. First and foremost, you have to understand that. Singles are incredibly important. What is on the charts, BBC Radio 1 charts, Radio 2, and so on, are singles. And what's in rotation sells records. Simple. If you can get into rotation, the highest rotation in the UK is the Radio 2 playlist. And in the UK, there is so much radio available. Radio is so important at every level. The most, obviously, the most popular is the BBC stations, and there's BBC Radio 1 and 2. There's 3 and 4 do classical. And then there's 6 Music, which is the equivalent of our BBC Radio 3, which they're closing next year, unfortunately, or they're saying they're closing. 6 Music is an online and digital-only station, and it's the one that plays indie music, more so. Radio 1 is top 40, and Radio 2 is adult top 40, I would say. Daily, those 3 stations, daily amount for about 10 million listeners. It's amazing. And you have to make sure that you get into these worlds. It's so important. There's also Absolute Radio. There's XFM. XFM is sort of like 6 Music, but a little poppier. And there's different shows. So it's not just every DJ has a 3-hour slot. Some have 2 a week. Some are on different stations. Some have more power than others, to be honest with you. From the new music point of view, in folk there's Bob Harris. In indie there's Hugh Stevens and John Kennedy. John Kennedy's on XFM. These people you literally contact, like, individually, them or their producer. And a good radio plugger will know how to ensure that your music is played at their listening meetings. Because every week they get together around a table, I promise, and just listen to a bunch of songs and then say, oh, that's crap, that's good, and so on and so forth. And you have to make sure that you beat that first pile, and you make sure you get into that meeting. And good radio pluggers, and again, everyone has their opinions about this, will do that. And they're expensive. Radio plugger, on average, for a single and album campaign, so that's 1 single, that's usually preceded a week or 2 before an album. And then the album is about £1,500 to £2,000 on the low to medium end. Okay? And that's across all genres. And again, there's specialist stations. There's for dance, there's like there's Annie Mac, who's on BBC Radio 1. They do shows where they broadcast from clubs, I guess like The Edge does, right, from the Phoenix. Do they still do that? No? All right. So it's the same type of thing, but getting in that is also important. And you count your plays, and you do get paid for this, obviously. You get your copyright. So assembling your assets and manipulating them went into that. Social networking and the reasons to do it. I believe that social networking is very, very important, and I believe that brand maintenance is very, very important. Every touch point that you're going to have your audience access should look similar to each other. Simple. I know Facebook can't look very nice, but your MySpace should resemble your website and so on. You should put your contact info up there, I believe. And having a really professional and strong-looking brand awareness online, people pay attention to that in the UK. They do. People go to MySpace is still what you send to people to listen to in the UK, and it needs to look good. And it needs to get to the point. Simple. Videos really help too, because agents will take artists on without seeing them live. Sometimes they prefer not to, but they will, but they'd like to do it by seeing some sort of live video. And it has to be of reasonable quality. And publishing and sync in the UK. This is relatively new world for me, to be honest, but there is a strong sync and licensing market in the UK. There are independent UK publishing houses, both from the major label and the independent world, and most of them license television to the domestic UK market, because the UK has a very active and independent television world. They do lots of shows that you only see in the UK, and there are agencies for that. There's about 40 that I've counted that do that outside of the major label world. All the major labels have their own in-house music pitching and sync and licensing. And often that's a great way to enter into an agreement. A lot of these agencies will work on non-exclusive bases where if they get something, they'll take their commission, and if they don't, you're free to go to someone else. And it's always best to make sure that you're pitching your stuff to music publishers as well, and sync and licensing people as you would be pitching to labels. So, any questions thus far? Good? Okay, quiet. Fun. All right. Immigration scares people. It's not scary in the UK, I promise. I think it was last year, the UK changed their system completely. It was completely overhauled. It was actually not only the system that invites temporary workers, which would be us, into the UK, but their whole system. I was even personally involved, right, being an immigrant. And they adopted a points-based system, which exists here, exists in Australia and a few other countries. And on paper it works, but the problem is when they changed the system in the UK, they just didn't tell anyone. And it confused everyone in the music industry. We were all trust me, very confused. But when you look at the system, it's very easy. The first thing that you need to know is you have no control over it whatsoever. The UK system is based on sponsors. There's two types of sponsors. There's A sponsors and B sponsors. The sponsors, all you have to do to be a sponsor is you have to be a registered company in England and Wales, or Scotland, or Northern Ireland, I guess. You're audited every 8 months. You're not audited on your finances, but you're audited on the sponsorships that you give to people, because there's very strict paperwork that you have to abide by. But the thing is what you need to do as an artist is you just need to align yourself with a sponsor. The beautiful thing about the UK is that anyone can pretty much sponsor anyone. You don't have to really be aligned with X company. So if you're a folk artist and you're just coming to tour, literally anyone can sponsor you. And it's opened up this boutique industry where anyone can charge whatever they want for it. The cost to literally press OK online and put in the sponsorship is £10. So companies like Metropolis, Live Nation, all the major booking agencies, they have a deal that they can issue them pretty much for next to nothing. But it takes quite a bit of time to literally input the information online. It's not the world's easiest. I've done it. And so I've seen people charge anywhere from £50 to £1,000. It's pretty crazy. You have to watch out and not be screwed. And because we noticed there was an artist, I don't remember her name, but she was sent back, and because she didn't sort this out last year when no one knew what was going on. What I did is I've aligned myself with 3 different sponsors, and SEMA can now issue permits ourselves. So we've simplified the system. We've aligned ourselves with 3 A sponsors. A just means you get to issue more permits in a year than B. That's it. It's not very difficult. There's a set amount of work that you need to do. All your shows need to be confirmed. It's illegal to perform a show in the UK that isn't on your application. And if you get caught, then there's problems. Not for you, but for the sponsor. And that's even bigger of a problem probably for you then. That's one. You have to have your flight booked. You have to make sure that your flight is booked. Everyone that is traveling with you, even girlfriends and family, every single person, whether they play or their crew or their friends, has to be on the application. If they see that you're traveling with someone that isn't on the application, they'll refuse it. Permits are usually valid in the UK for your shows, and that's it. Jay. Okay, so usually your permits are valid for about 2 months. You can get them extended, like let's say you have a festival a few months later, you can ask, the festival has to be on the application, and they will extend it. But most of the time, it's just valid for the extent of your shows. You don't need a visa to